As usual, we talk to friends explaining us how things work. This is Lisa, it's said here, who she is, specialist in facades. And the question to you is, to start this program, is what is a detail? Why do I need a detail? I buy these systems, they're available, I just say I want this facade. Why do I need a detail?
A detail is everything. Details are means of communication. We use them like a language, like a tool to translate a vision, an architectural design intent, into something that can be built. So they can actually become reality. Architects use visuals to show what the design intent is. They use plans and they use sections, and we use the details to describe how we can build it.
So
An architect defines with a drawing, with a plan and a section, what it is that they are designing, and we as facade engineers, we do the how, and we use a drawing in the same way that an architect uses a drawing of a different scale, and that describes how do we build the facade and how does it perform.
So it's in principle a picture instead of 1,000 words to describe.
No. It's not a picture. It's not a picture. It's very important. It's not a picture. A picture is always something that leaves room for interpretation. A detail should not leave any room for interpretation. A detail is very clear. It is a very clear language, and it's very well defined of how things go together, what are the components that we're working with, and with the way that we show them, we make clear and we describe the performance and longevity of the facade.
I also expect that, say, geometry is something which we're going to see, defining which components are positioned.
But that isn't typically what you see in a detail. The geometry you typically see, you'll see that on a larger scale drawing, and you'll see how does the massing go together, how does my building look, and when we get to the detail, we're really just zooming in to that geometry, and we're adding layers of additional components that are part of our construction.
Okay, so system 1, system 2, system 3 with all the different functions. What is with the interface in between these systems?
That is exactly what you see in your detail.
Okay, so it defines, I have a facade system here, I have a shading device here, and this is the way how they're interlinked, connected, and tightened if necessary.
Yeah, and you will start with how does that typically look if you think about a building. How, if I just chop it in the middle, how does it look exactly in the middle? And as you then go through your process of design, you'll think about how does it look in the corner. So how do I make sure that as I walk around my building from the outside, but also on the inside, my detailing is consistent and I can solve all the different conditions, as we call them.
So, but within the process, the architect starts first, and then at a certain point, you as an expert come to the table, and then you already start zooming in at a different scale in order to define that he makes a solid corner, and for you it's already maybe a facade cladding with an insulation behind and a load-bearing wall. So you cut through horizontally, and then you define how these elements come together. You define the detail of the corner. How does it look?
Yeah, it's really adding layers of communication. It's taking an idea of what do we want to achieve and translating that into a technical representation.
Yeah.
So
Technical representation.
Yeah.
Good wording. Who's involved? The architect, the facade specialist? Who else?
a lot of people. So unfortunately, and maybe luckily, we
becomes more complex. Yeah? Tell us.
Well, this is why we do this course.
Yeah,
Come
precisely.
on.
we have a lot of people that have a say. There's people that deal with acoustics. There's people that deal with fire. There's people that deal with a structure. Usually they get a lot of say. There's people that deal with the building physics. Is it comfortable or not? So there's a lot of, these days, specialist consultants that all have a say on what is going on in a detail from a performance perspective, typically they don't necessarily know how what they need to perform, how that is supposed to look. So that is coming back to the language conversation again, right? Here, detail again helps us translate a performance requirement into a universal language that can be understood by designers, that can be understood by fabricators, that can be understood by the people who actually build.
Do we have different levels of detail quality by scale, by information depth? When I look at this, which is say a shop drawing, this is something a manufacturer does, which really defines the product they use.
Yeah, that's not what we start with. We don't start with this.
Yeah, because it's way too much detail,
Okay, so
isn't it? Or
It is.
too precise.
If I start in a concept design and I think about what is the geometry of my building, how do my two facades come together, or four if we've got four sides, and how does my roof sit on the top, I really first just want to think about what are these elements, and I don't really want to know what's happening here with lots of little screws and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
No one knows that. So in the beginning, we're really just thinking about two elements, how do they go together, what happens in the middle. We define that, and then as the project progresses, we go into more level of detail and add levels and layers of information. And in the end, at the point where someone has to fabricate it, obviously we need to represent every screw. We need to know how many components is it made out of, and people, in addition to the detail, at the end will have to know where to actually put the screw.
So we start with an say design detail, then we develop it towards enough information for all the expert specialists involved to then tender process level, the tender detail, and then this as a shop drawing comes from the contractor saying, okay, and I translate your detail into what I can actually manufacture and then produce.
Correct. And in an ideal world, through that entire process, we do not lose the design intent. And in an ideal world, at the end, the building will still look like the initial visual.
It's
Despite
the
architect's idea, despite the fact that there's a level of interpretation in that, in the end, the detail will not harm that vision, but the detail will actually enhance that vision.
Which is Marcel, which is a very perfect closing word.